one. Ladies and gentlemen, I think opposition fails to ignore a lot of the best benefits we could get in how genes and learning more about gametes will give you. In my speech, I will be talking about why things how buying and selling gametes in the market will be done well and why it's so important to be done in the first place. So let's first talk about who are the people that are likely to buy gametes when it is now sold as property. We're going to tell you that scientists are the only people that will be buying it. Why is it not an average person? First things first is they can't afford any equipment to actually use these gametes in the first place. What's the point of owning an embryo if you can't earn the petri dish for it, the microscope for it, which costs tens and thousands of dollars that an average person can't have or access? Secondly, also knowledge. People need to actually study and learn things to be able to even know what to do with it in the first place. So it's unlikely that a random person in the streets or a hobo black market guy will be able to buy it unless they are some renowned scientist that suddenly chooses to leave and become a black market seller, which is far and few in between. Now, how are we sure that buying and selling of gametes will be done well? I'll give you three mechanisms. First, scientists are usually the buyers of gametes, and these are the people who have reputations with their livelihoods at stake if it's done badly. This means that they have an incentive to do it well, and they can't just be abusing any poor people, or they can't be failing. They can't be failing or doing any harms to these people if they are marginalized and needing to sell their things. Secondly, scientists usually have the capacity to tell if it becomes dangerous. Guys, they're not going to blindly ask for your sperm and egg cells. More often than not, they need to check your conditions first, just like a blood test, see if you're even allowed to do it, check if you have any diseases with you, and be able to check if it's also dangerous for you as a person that's going to donate it. It is because they are also they have the most capacity to check that, as they have all the tools to do that. What do I mean by that? They have MRI scans, they have your blood scans, they can literally suck your get your blood and check it out if you have any sort of cancers that will be passed on, or any sort of things or failure. And guys, we're not in the medieval century where we're just suddenly randomly popping vessels. No, these scientists know what they're doing and they're not stupid. Thirdly, science structurally have a lot of rigor and protections for moral conduct, especially in peer-reviewed studies. I think that gametes and embryos are mostly going to be used right now for studies to develop things. And these studies have a lot of rigors and protections for moral conduct and be punished if they don't. Even so, this is already a structural reason for people to keep in line and not to suddenly go out of their way, out of nowhere. So even if, and this is just an even if opposition somehow proves all these three mechanisms not being true, well, the average person can sue very hard if any of it fails at any point. Physically damages, because they are now considered property, and they are also considered themselves, and it also physically hurts them. This is a safety net for people that are harmed, and will give them a lot of money to protect and to at least alleviate any pain that is done. Because we're living in the 21st century. We can sue people if they are doing something wrong to you and has directly harmed you. Any claims of opposition needs to prove all three of these will not work or is false, to prove or is false, and how it will actually badly harm people. So why does this way over ops claim? Well, I think that we already proved three more mechanisms than I actually have, and this removes any sort of impact that they have while it doesn't work in an open market. And if we don't have any resources as a and this is just a response to what they said earlier, if we don't have resources as a country to do it right, then it's unlikely that they will need to have a demand for embryos in the first place. It will most likely be countries that actually have access to these resources. And no extra things. Joseph characterized how this will be working through supply and demand, where it's going to be regulated. I hope you remember that. And this is not just a policy motion, it's a value judgment. LO responses are dismissive without giving structural reasons why it's bad. We preempt and flip this from what Seth told you when he told you about the reason behind our biochemistry and physiology. This in and itself is a net good for humanity in the world for the things Joseph told you, of which we heard little to no response with. The strongest rebuttal preemption we have is similar to how become legalizing abortion. people already did this in alleyways with a coat hanger. Well, it means that it will be done illegally if we're going to not have a regulatory board, because absent a regulatory board and body, the harvesting of embryos, which obviously have more value than sperm or egg, can place women at risk at the point in which they can at worst die or at least be exposed to unsanitary conditions that can lead to genital infections or even sexually transmitted diseases. So we're going to tell you now why it's more important. It gives a lot more accessibility to the future. Let's talk about researchers. Creation of these embryos and stuff like that will help us better understand technology, clothing, and bioengineering. This goes into many fields, ladies and gentlemen. It goes into cloning. Cloning is such a big deal. Why? Because we're able to clone lungs. We're able to build stem cells. We're able to save lives without having to actually, if we're able to properly study embryo. This is the first step for many sorts of discoveries that we could have in the future. And the biggest limitation they have right now is that lack of supply. We have the demand for it in many countries, and already this is why we want this in the first place, because we can look at the impacts that it could have to humanity in itself. A person that has lung cancer can have a new set of lungs grown if they are grown from themselves. If we're able to actually develop embryo and understand it properly. A person that could have been born in autism could have been gene edited from the very start before they were born, so they wouldn't have needed to be born in autism in the first place. We think that this is such a huge impact, and an important mechanism an important mechanism I want to add here is that the fact that as we have more and more research of it, the more accessible of all of these kinds of technologies will be in the future. We believe in economies of scale, and the fact that more investments in these sciences of technologies will be added when these are now in the free market, and it will lead to much more cheaper technologies as demand builds for the future. It means accessibility to all of these things will be much more easier in our side and will be much more faster in our side the more we're able to sell this. And this is just the starting point to unlock all of those impacts. This will allow the average person in the future to access technologies of editing egg cells and prevent so many things, again, that we try to prevent here in the future. Early cancers, autism, or maybe in the more better treatments in terms of cloning technologies, or maybe even being able to just being able to create more being able to develop more of yourself, and we have never been more proud to propose. Thank you.